The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams On Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle, to the end zone, caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows.
It picks. Nickel Roby Coleman
throws. Enzo caught, touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp walks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Wood, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA. No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebu Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters strutting his stuff. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler. Oh, it's picked off on the play by John Johnson. After the throw, and we mentioned that is his 8th completed pass in his career. Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand. Todd Gurley, 20, 10, Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 156. I'm joined here by Alexis, Kraft, and we're going to be breaking down the Rams off-season, kind of giving you that introduction into the fun time of the year after the Super Bowl, after the playoffs and all of that. Thank you so much for joining me, Alexis, after all these issues with the tech. Finally figured everything out, and I have you on the show. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, we'll get started off. First things first, we have our questions from our listeners and on Twitter. So if you guys want to do that next time, anytime we put a post out there, feel free to comment below with your questions. The first question, and it's not really a question, but you can't keep more than two out of Ndamukong Suh, Roger Saffold, LaMarcus Joyner, and Dante Fowler Jr. So, Alexis, I'll start with you. Who are you keeping and who are you not keeping?
I'm going to for sure keep Fowler.
I would definitely say that as well.
And then probably... man, I don't know. I'm so torn because Saffold is like an OG, you know. And
Yeah.
if you get rid of him, then it's kind of like the end of an era. But maybe Joyner? I'm gonna say I'm gonna keep Fowler and Joyner because I think at 31 in the draft, there'll be a lot of guys that can, I don't want to say replace Sue, but replace Sue. And I don't know. What do you think?
So instantly I'm saying Fowler and I'm saying Saffold. When I think you look at it, I'd love to have Sue back, but the fact of the matter is they do have Mike Brocker still. They do have JFM. They get Morgan Fox back, which I'm actually really thrilled about. He's a restricted free agent. We'll talk about him a little bit later on, but really excited to get Morgan Fox back. Did tear his ACL, and he played significant amount of snaps last postseason against the Falcons. But really, the whole point of this, Alexis, is the fact when I look at this draft, I'm not really thoroughly impressed with the guards. And I know that sounds weird because I know a lot of people are talking up this offensive line group, but I literally just found out today, maybe it's a problem with me, and I know I told you, my guy Darrell Williams from Mississippi State did not declare, and I was kind of under the assumption that he did, and he'd been number one out of all the guards in this class, so I feel like this class is a lot weaker than I had originally anticipated. For that, I think you absolutely have to keep Saffold. As far as Fowler, there's a lot of pass rushers in this class, but the fact of the matter is this: Fowler He's 25 years old. You kind of got a steal in him. Without him, you're not in the Super Bowl. It's that simple. So I think he adds that extra presence off the edge. I've really been down on Samson Ebukam. He's really had one really good game that was kind of an anomaly. So I don't really know what's going on there. I just feel like you pay Fowler, whether it's a tag or you sign him long term. But either way, you got a 25-year-old guy that's a former 3rd overall pick for a reason. As soon as he left Jacksonville, you started to see his spirits rise, and he seems to be excited to play for the Rams and everything. So I don't know if he really wants to leave. I would imagine that the tag is in order, but that's where I'm going here. Joyner, I'm not even coming close to bringing back, and the reason I say that is because I actually like Marquis Christian, Blake Countess, and Steven Parker in the back end, and then I really like this class for safeties. I mean, you talk about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of Florida, guys like Jonathan Abram. I really like Will Harris later on in the draft, Boston College guy. I talked to him at the Senior Bowl. He'd love to play with John Johnson. They're kind of developing a defensive back factory over there. So there's a lot of guys in this draft I think can fill in. And also, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but free agency, with Earl Thomas, Tyrann Mathieu, all those guys. So I would go Saffold and I would go Fowler. That's my take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the overall consensus is we want to keep Fowler.
Yeah.
Just from talking to you and talking to other Rams fans, I think he's kind of the guy that we don't want to lose. The rest of them, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are other guys. Alex didn't mention, somebody like CJ Anderson or guys like that, but we'll get into that a little bit later as well. On to our next question. Good question, Alex, getting the talking going. Let's see here. A lot of these are just comments.
Right.
Are the Rams going to keep Gurley? I can't believe they would trade Gurley from Marco. They're not getting rid of him.
I think he's kidding. I don't know. Are the Rams going to keep Gurley? I can't believe that they would trade Gurley.
Well, I don't know if he's kidding, because the fact of the matter is that there was that whole thing.
There was talk, yeah, but I mean, there's no scenario that I see that ever happening, but who knows? I mean, I would say there's 0% chance that they get rid of Gurley.
As long as Les Snead doesn't use the D word, delete. And the last time you can't just delete Sam Bradford, and then he, turned around and deleted Sam Bradford. So as long as he stays away from that word with Todd, I feel good. Which free agency player would you most like to see going to the Rams? Mark Christensen puts this.
Most like to see going to the Rams?
I mean, I'm assuming this kind of detaches the value, how much they're going to cost, and just who you would want to be on the Rams out of this free agency class. There's a lot of avenues you can go.
I mean, I would love to see Landon Collins replace Joyner.
That would be interesting. Man, that's a good one. In a perfect world, I don't think he's going to leave New York, but if he does. Oh, I know who. Jadeveon Clowney. Give me Clowney all day next to Aaron Donald.
Man.
He is. You have to keep in mind they came from the same draft class, and Clowney was considered by all means the number one guy in that class. Aaron Donald has. Just the fact that he's completely taken over the league has made people forget about guys like Clowney. But Clowney's still an elite player, and you put him on the outside. Maybe you do bring back, Fowler with him. I doubt they would double dip, though. But you talk about Clowney, and then it really doesn't matter who else you have on the edge. I think just his complementary play would benefit everyone around him. So I would definitely go Jadeveon Clowney.
It's a good pick.
Let's see here. The next one. Are the Rams going to keep Sully around for $1.5 million? This is my boy Sly. Or save an estimated 4.2 if he gets cut. Here's the thing. I don't like John Sullivan. I mean, he's probably a great person and everything, and I'm not gonna get into that, but like as far as, this offensive line, he's the weak link. So I absolutely believe they need to move on from him. But if you guys listen to the podcast, the last podcast, I mean, Alexis, I wasn't really fond of Brian Allen as a, starter. To me, he's a spot starter / backup, and I feel like they would need to upgrade that.
Well, right, and I know that you saw this. I saw this as well today on Twitter. It was like the center rankings for the NFC West.
Oh God.
And it was like the worst division. Like all the centers graded, I think, were at like that 50 mark.
Yeah,
and I think the Rams were like number 3. So like clearly we have an issue at center. So I don't think that they're going to keep Sullivan around.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up retiring, kind of like a forced retirement, like nonchalantly, like the Rams are kind of like, well, we're not going to bring you back, so you could retire a Ram or go out as a street free agent. Like, I don't know, something like that. So I mean, that's a good question. Let's see, what else we got here. T-Bone, when and where will training camp be? I'm really bad when it comes to stuff like this. I thought they were at Cal Lutheran, but I could be wrong.
Weren't they like at Oxnard maybe?
Yeah, like 1,000. Well, the problem is we don't live in LA, so like this is like second nature. Like this is common knowledge for people like that.
You have the two of us are just gonna speculate. Like I think they're in Oxnard or. No, but you're right about Cal Lutheran. Actually, I think Oxnard is where the Cowboys have training camp, right?
Yeah, that's how they kind of established that fan base there. So yeah, I think it's that, but I mean, it could be. I know it's not UCI anymore.
It'll probably change when they get that new stadium done, though. Like they'll have probably a new facility, I'm assuming, somewhere.
Yeah, I would imagine that. The next one, Lake Show Rams. Was the signing of C.J. Anderson more of a blessing or a curse? I would absolutely say a blessing. I mean, this is somebody, without him, you don't play in the Super Bowl, period.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it was, kind of that final push that we needed, and he played amazing. I mean, he played a lot better than people thought he would. I mean, he totally, carried the team, for parts of games, and blessing.
Yeah, and then Punkin Drublick, friend of ours, he puts, if Whitworth and Saffold stay, what do you think of sliding Noteboom in at right guard? You and
I have talked about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of under the operation where regardless of what happens, I think they have something good in Noteboom. So if they play him at left tackle or they play him at guard, I think they'll be fine. It's really a matter of if you're going to move Blythe over to center, which he does mention. And I do think that's an option. Ryan Groy is also out there. He's not an amazing center, because I know there was some people like, why were you talking up Ryan Groy so much last show? And, the fact of the matter is this. I mean, Ryan Groy has familiarity with Aaron Cromer. So, that's first and foremost. Second, he was a starter last year for the Bills. And third, he has interest in signing with the Rams because he signed an offer sheet. I mean, if the Bills decline that, he's a Los Angeles Ram. So, I definitely think, that'd be an interesting thing. But no, I don't think he is a game changer type of player. But I think that whole thing there is really intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, when you and I talked about it last show, kind of our thoughts about Noteboom, and it's not that I dislike Noteboom, but I mean, I think if Whitworth retires or Saffold goes or somebody, I just don't see Noteboom being a guy that just slides right in and is starting caliber, as a replacement. But maybe he is. Maybe my assessment's wrong. Who knows?
No, I mean, it's good to have opposing viewpoints. Otherwise, we'd be like, yeah, I agree with you every single time. And I know everyone was talking about that other TCU tackle that went later on to the Eagles, that he was better. But I like Noteboom. I guess we'll see where that goes. I also, we didn't mention Jameel Demby from Maine. I mean, he could be an option.
Oh, yeah.
And Brian Allen could just kick in at guard. Maybe he's just not a center. So, well, who knows? But that's all for that. Thank you guys for giving us the questions and everything. We move on to the Rams free agency talk. We're gonna stick with UFAs, unrestricteds, and then we'll go to restricted. And that's really it. We're not gonna get into the exclusive rights, guys. We can do that another time. So to start, we'll call this stay or go. Ndamukong Suh.
Go.
I'm going to say go. And it saddens me, but, this is why you draft a guy like John Franklin Myers. This is why you got, Sebastian Joseph Day. This is why you have Mo Fox, Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers. They have the depth to not have Sue and draft somebody. You know what I mean? Like, if they were to get like a Jerry Tillery, I'm sure they would definitely take that. Or if they were to get, later on, like a Daylon Mack or a Daniel Wise, they would take that. So I'm going to go with that.
Right. And there's like, as we mentioned at that 31 spot, assuming they stay there, there's a lot of guys, I think, that will be available then that could easily, start.
There are some crazy scenarios that I've been seeing. Like, I've been looking at all different mock drafts because I think it's interesting. I mean, the Rams could really end up with anybody. I wouldn't be surprised if even somebody like Mack Wilson fell like you had, or somebody like even, Devin White. I mean, like, I'm not expecting that.
Right.
But, like, we don't know how this draft's going to play out. And oftentimes what we'll find is you and I will have a mock draft that is kind of similar, kind of has the same thing. But then when the actual draft rolls along, we're like, where did this, it doesn't always match.
That's usually how it goes, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to remember, another interesting thing is Jeffrey Simmons at 31. Because like you said, we have all that depth at that position. I mean, why not take Simmons at 31 and start Franklin Myers or somebody for the, next season until Simmons comes back?
Yeah, I saw a lot of, hate towards Franklin Myers. I mean, he was easily my rookie of the year for the Rams. He was the Rams rookie of the year because he won the award. But, I just want to, take a quick sec to highlight something with John Franklin Myers. Because with John Franklin Myers, the problem is people were like saying that he doesn't sack, quarterbacks or whatever. And if we were going by that statement, you wouldn't think that Chris Long was a good football player. Because, I mean, Chris Long didn't sack 20, he didn't sack 20 quarterbacks a season. So, John Franklin Myers' snaps per pressure was 8.3. And Ndamukong Suh's, and I know I tweeted this out, 11.41. So, consistency, efficiency, basically getting more for less. He wasn't getting a ton of opportunities. He had some games where he went over the 30 mark in snaps. He won the Vikings game, sealed that deal with the strip sack. And then, honestly, if the Rams recover his strip sack against Tom Brady, that might have been a different game. So who knows, But he played well, I thought. And I think he is a starting caliber player with a enormous amount of upside. I think he was their diamond in the rough. So that's my thoughts on JFM. But as we move forward, Dante Fowler Jr., I think you and I both are stay here.
Keep in all caps.
Yeah.
And underline it. Whatever you have to do, just do it. Please, keep him.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much that easy. When you talk about somebody, again, 25 years old, you put, you threw picks the Jaguars' way to get him. That's not so much my concern, but I do think it means something. So I definitely think they should keep Fowler. Again, the speed off the edge. I think he's got some rare speed. I really do. I mean, when he has his best play, his highs are really high. I mean, he's game breaking. So I definitely agree. LaMarcus Joyner, I'm a resounding go. And I hate saying that because I think Joyner was a top 5 safety the year prior, but this year just it wasn't right. And I mean, he almost cost the Rams a Super Bowl berth with that, failed. I mean, that should have been picked against the Saints. Breeze kind of lofted it up there. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm probably leaning towards go, but there's just a part of me, and it might be nostalgia, just that, I want to see him stick around. But my assumption is they're going to let him walk.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I would imagine it's probably 90% likely they do. Roger Saffold, I'm saying stay. I don't want to know what life after Roger Saffold's like, and this is somebody, you talk about nostalgia, he's seen it all. I mean, he was in the Sam Bradford draft, and I want this guy to retire with the Rams, and I want him to win a ring with the Rams. So I'm saying stay. I think he is one of the better offensive guards in football as well.
Yeah, I'd like him to stay. I'm not sure if he will or not. I'd like him to stay because, like you said, he's kind of one of those last players, from that era, and he was a guy who was around a lot. I live in St. Louis, and when they were in St. Louis, he was really active here in the community, and was just a great guy to have in your city. And I'd like to see him stay, and I'd like him to retire Ram as well.
Yeah, and then C.J. Anderson is the one where I say he stays. But the Rams, I'll throw this tidbit out there. The Rams are not going to bid against themselves. They do believe in John Kelly. They drafted him in the 6th round. They like him. Obviously, they believe in Todd. So, and that's not including the fact that they have Malcolm Brown on a restricted, free agency. So they do have to, have him on a qualifying offer and do all that. But, if CJ wants big time money, the Rams will walk. I don't think they pay him more than maybe $3 million, $4 million per year.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see him stay, but as you stated, I don't think the Rams will be dishing out big money. But I also don't know. We don't know if he's going to want the big money or if he's believes in the Rams and wants to stay. I mean, we don't know. I'd like to see him stay.
Yeah, no, I mean he was huge, and we just talked about it. I mean, he was a blessing, not a curse. Dominic Easley, I think, is such a cheap option. Why don't you just bring him back? I mean, at worst, he's a camp body, but I mean, he started the season at outside linebacker, and he was actually the highest graded at outside linebacker for the Rams. So I'm bringing him back because at this point, he's torn his ACL 3 times. He's probably done with football pretty soon. If it happens again, I would definitely say he's done. If he's willing to come back, it's going to be on the veteran minimum. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm indifferent about it. I mean, like you said, I don't think he's got much more time left in the league. And, he's, 3, you said 3 ACLs, right?
I think it's 3 now, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, I mean, at this point, like you said, why not? But for a minimum.
Only the minimum. But I really like Easley, and I mean, he's still pretty young. I believe he's like 27, 26 years old. So I could be wrong there, but here we go again at the Stephen A.
Yeah.
Now, Matt Longacre is an interesting one. I know a lot of people hate on him. To me, I feel like he works in a 4-3 defense. That's originally where he came into the league at. I remember watching him as a UDFA. Very impressed with him. I picked him to make the roster, and sure enough, he made it all the way until 2018. I'm going to say go because I just don't see the fit in a 3-4 scheme. I don't think he is much of a stand-up pass rusher. I don't think he really makes sense in this. I think he's somebody who needs his hand in the dirt, wants to be a defensive end in a 4-3. That's where I see him as, not, a stand-up 3-4.
No, I agree. I say let him walk. I mean, I think give him an opportunity to go somewhere where they can use him more. Like you said, he doesn't really fit into our scheme, and I think he has a potential to play somewhere else. Quite a bit.
Absolutely. And then Ethan Westbrook's, I'm going to say stay for the right price. Another guy that just he's probably good enough to start on another team. I think he's a really good rotational guy, and if as long as he's willing to stay, I mean, for the right price, this has been his team, his whole career. I mean, if he wants to stay, I think the Rams can get him cheap. So I'm going to go with stay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with stay too. I agree with everything you said.
And then Sam Shields is an interesting one. I'm going to say go. He was great on special teams, but I feel like he's going to want more than the minimum now that he proved that he could play an entire season. And credit to him, because, I mean, this is somebody that hadn't played since, 2014? Something crazy. So, I think, good for Sam, but I don't see the Rams willing to pay him anything more than veteran minimum.
Right. Yeah, I'd probably say go. Nothing against him. I mean, I think he stepped up this year and definitely proved, that he can still play, and he's obviously been through a lot in his career. But I mean, I don't think that I want to give him any more than that minimum.
Yeah, and then Sean Mannion is pretty much the easiest one for me. It's a bummer, honestly. I don't know how great Sean Mannion is, and I think this is why the Rams kind of failed in that regard. They had years where they could have easily put him in there when they had Nick Foles and Case Keenum. They played a concussed Case Keenum, vividly concussed against the Ravens, over putting in Sean Mannion. That kind of irks me. I feel like, he also kind of pushed Austin Davis out, who I really liked. And then we never got to see what Sean Mannion really was. I mean, we saw him, with backups last year, and then he was like the preseason, everyone would call for his name, but we didn't really see a lot out of him. And I think he kind of got the short end of the stick, but at the same time, I don't know how great he is. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's probably just a rotational backup, probably fighting for a third or even, a second string spot. I mean, I think the Rams really wanted his experience, and so that's why they went with him over like a Brandon Allen or, Luis Perez, who's in the AAF. That's just my take is I don't see him coming back.
Neither do I. I don't think, like you said, I don't really ever see him getting past a backup quarterback, position. And honestly, I've never really been that impressed with him. I just, at this point, he's not somebody that if anything ever happened to Jared Goff, I would feel, comfortable at all having him step into that role. And I just think it's time for him to go. But it's funny that you mentioned that game where Case Keenum got concussed against the Ravens, because I have a long story that I won't share here, but it was really tragic because I had like a lot riding on that game. I'll never forget watching it. It's a sore spot for me.
Oh wow, yeah. I still can't believe they lost that game, but
it was a really like weird game. I mean, it was just really weird.
Oh yeah. No, I remember that game vividly, just like the concussion. Bryce Hager. Here's my thing, but before I say, stay or go, he's contributed to his role. He's one of the better special teams guys on the team. But I thought, he filled in nicely. He came in that one big spot against the Cowboys. He stood up Zeke at the line of at the goal line. So I won't forget that one-on-one. I just think, the athleticism's there. You keep him in camp. You sign him to like a cheap deal and you let him try to win a spot. I'm not cutting him. I'm also not guaranteeing him a spot on the 53.
Right. I agree. I actually like him a lot, and think that he's got potential, but I think this is his third year? Fourth year. Because he's been here since at least 2015. I know that.
Well, he was definitely a St. Louis Ram. They drafted him in the 6th round out of Baylor. Because I know his father played in the league, Britt Hager. But I don't remember.
His brother, I think, is in the draft this year.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, his brother. I believe it's his brother. His name's Brecken Hager. and I thought I read that it was his brother. He plays for Texas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that. He 2015 draft. Good call.
Yeah.
Had to look that up. Ramik
Mhm.
Wilson, young, but I mean, I guess if he wants to come for like the same amount as Bryce, no, because Ramik played actual like legit starting snaps when Mark Barron was out. And I didn't think he was that bad. And he won the Rams the Packers game. I'm going to say stay for the right price. And again, it's kind of the same thing. Win your job. We're not guaranteeing you a 53-man roster spot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's got, there's some potential there. I don't know how much, but I'd like to keep him around.
And now we're, restricted free agency, and it's really simple. We're going to go with a match, or we're going to say let walk. Corey Littleton, this is the easiest decision on, this entire list for me. It's match, because I'm the biggest Corey Littleton fan you've probably ever met.
I'm going to say match too.
Of course, I don't know how much we're matching, but I don't really care. We're not letting Corey Littleton go. Troy Hill is an interesting one. I say match and have him earn his spot in camp.
I'm indifferent, but I mean, I guess maybe match and for no other reason than depth.
Yeah. And then Malcolm Brown, this is the tricky one because, I mean, you and I both think we both went CJ Anderson stay. I don't think they keep Malcolm Brown with CJ, and I think it's as simple as they would waive his restricted free agency rights, just so they're the type of organization that would be player first, and they would probably go and let Malcolm Brown go and try and get a starting job. Like, that's how I see it.
And that's probably what I would do too. And I like him a lot, but I think I would keep CJ and give Malcolm a chance to, go play a lot, for another team.
Yeah, and I don't quite see CJ getting that same interest because he's not as young as Malcolm. I think Malcolm could fight for, say, like the Jets starting job. I think that's definitely an option there. The Ravens, there are options. Keep in mind, the Ravens saw the Rams. They had a joint practice in the offseason last year. So they've seen these guys. They've seen Malcolm Brown. Could be an interesting fit. Morgan Fox, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I talked him up earlier. I'm matching this all the way.
Yes, I would agree with that.
All right, so that's that segment. We're going to take a quick break. And while we're doing our quick break, here is the Jaylon Ferguson interview. Had a blast interviewing him, and it was even more fun getting to hang out with him a little bit at the Senior Bowl. So here is Jaylon Ferguson of Louisiana Tech. All right, guys, joining me on the podcast, he is the all-time NCAA career sack record holder, Jaylon Ferguson, Louisiana Tech defensive end. How's it going, man?
Everything going good right now. Just in the middle of training.
That's awesome, man. Absolutely awesome. I can't believe. I mean, are you serious? That this record is insane. I'm not gonna lie.
I appreciate it. It took a lot of hard work to get to at least 4 good years of work, 2 double-digit sack seasons. I'm one of the few people that I know did it. I don't know too many people who did it like that though. And I came back and broke my own record. So it's pretty cool being able to break your own record.
Yeah, it was incredible. Formerly held by Terrell Suggs. I'm sure you've heard of him. So that's pretty awesome. So Jaylon, you're a former 3-star recruit coming out of high school. Do you feel like you have a chip on your shoulder, especially after breaking the sack record?
Yeah, I feel like even though I broke the sack record, I still don't get as much credit as I deserve because no matter what you can say, numbers don't lie. My numbers been great over the last 3 years, 4 years, and I still don't get as much credit I think it's due towards me. But all is going to change coming up real soon when I go against better competition in the Senior Bowl. I'm trying to open up a lot of eyes and realize that just because I'm out of Louisiana Tech, I mean I'm not talented. I'm not the best, one of the best pass rushers in the nation right now. The numbers don't lie.
I totally agree with you. I'm really excited for you to get your opportunity in front of the best of the best. And in reality, I do have to say, competition's competition. So I mean, you can talk small school all you want. I think kind of it has become a little bit of a crutch, unnecessarily or kind of lazily. I do think some people don't like to dive into film of a guy who's playing at Louisiana Tech, which really it's not that small of a school when you really think about it. But I think that's just kind of how it is. And, watching you guys, because you're not the first quote-unquote small school guy I've interviewed. I interviewed Kyle Sloter, who's now in the NFL, played at Northern Colorado because Southern Miss, they wouldn't allow him to play quarterback. The coach only let him play a receiver. So, it's all about overcoming, and once you get the opportunity, I believe you're definitely going to grab hold of that. But with that being said, you come off last year. I thought you had some serious draft buzz. I knew your name. A lot of people knew your name. I heard your name tossed around a little bit at the Senior Bowl as one of the players that were expected to declare that didn't. What made you decide to stay for your senior season?
Well, last year I was blessed. I was blessed with a baby boy last year. My boy Jace was born, and I took the year and I had to think about it. I was leaving a lot of stuff on the table. I was leaving a sack record. I didn't have the season I was expecting last year, and I felt like I can come back one more time. I can spend more time with my family. At the same time, I had a chance to improve on my stock because last year I wasn't projected as high as I'm projected this year. I feel like I came back this year and I did everything plus did a little bit better. So coming back actually turned out to be one of the best things I decided to do. And I got to spend a lot of time with my baby and my family.
That's awesome,
so
man.
That made me very happy going forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love any time that happens. I mean, I'm under the impression that you really can't make it black or white. You can't really say, this is the right decision to stay no matter who you are, or this is the right decision to go no matter who you are. I do feel like, everyone kind of has to make their own decision. One of those things that I'll bring up is you played in the bowl game, and I know there are a lot of guys that sat out. I don't hold that against them, but I do feel like you deserve a little bit of, some credit for playing in that bowl game. I think it speaks a lot to who you are as a teammate. Tell me, what goes through that decision process, because we're starting to see now guys are sitting out of bowl games, and you made it pretty clear that you were going to play in yours.
Well, I can't speak for other guys, but everything I do, I came back. I did it for my teammates. I can't expect to go through the whole season and then with them depending on me and me depending on them and just to drop off at the end. Plus, I don't want to pass up on another guaranteed opportunity to play football again. You never know, anything can happen at any time, so I'm never going to pass up on a guaranteed chance to play again. And playing in Louisiana Tech is some of the best, playing with my brothers is some of the best memories I ever have. Some of my best friends made in college. So why not show my respect, show my love to the university that gave me a chance to do everything I'm doing by playing one more game. Then it's in Hawaii. It's not that bad. It's a bowl game. It's not that tough. It's not that hard of a challenge. It's just another week, another chance to play with your brothers. It's not that bad.
That's awesome. I love that answer. You could really tell, and I'm sure, my listeners out there can really tell that, this is a guy that is going to go down fighting with his team. You just jump off the film. You just seem like a really high motor, high intensity guy that's going to set the tone for the rest of the defense. And, coming in as a rookie, for an NFL team, I think that's going to be huge for you. But moving on, what would you say your college career was like now that you've finished up at Louisiana Tech?
I mean, it's hard to think that it's over right now. I'm still taking it all in with the Senior Bowl, but I graduated, so I'm very happy about that. But I think I finished up my career pretty strong. I could have left last year, but I came back and literally doubled all my stats from last year to give me, pretty good resume going forward. But looking back over the span of these last 4 to 5 years, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. Like, not even if I wouldn't have had the production that I had, I can honestly say I still had a good time playing at Louisiana Tech. And I learned a lot, and I met a lot of good people who really helped me going forward, like on the football field, off the football field, all the way up to the classroom. I met a lot of great people. A lot of people I'm still in contact with now that help me, they push me, they motivate me to do better. They want me to do better, and I want to do better for them. A lot of people leaning on me for stuff that they couldn't achieve and stuff that they can't achieve. And I can do that. I can take on all that weight. I can take on all that pressure for them. If I can do it, they can do it. I want to show people that anything is possible. It's not where you from. It's about how hard you work, what you're willing to sacrifice for it, how much time you willing to dedicate to your craft. I'm dedicating all my time and all my energy toward what I love, and it's paying off. It's paying off in a major way right now.
Hey, I hear you, man. I'm doing a Rams podcast, and I live in upstate New York, so I definitely, location. You can't put a GPS on talent and hard work. I don't think you can, centralize in one location. I don't think, just because you go to an Alabama makes you a first-round pick. I don't believe in all of that. I do think that, it's really cool how this whole thing has progressed, especially since I've really taken, a liking and an interest in following the draft, because you see all these guys that will come from different backgrounds. You'll see guys that have to leave early because they have to support their kids, and they had kids early on in high school, and so they have to leave and, get that money early on. And then you have guys that are able to stay back, and then, of course, they're thrown the whole red flag because they're not, a young pass rusher. They're not a young quarterback. They're 23 or 24. Like a guy like on the Rams, Cooper Kupp, who's 24. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like everyone has their own path, and I think different guys carve out different opportunities for others. And it's really cool because I feel like you're going to do the same. I mean, highly productive in college. I know people will look at, the quarterback stats and say, well, Case Keenum's the all-time leader in passing and Sean, whatever. But no matter what, no one can take away from you that you're the record holder for sacks. And I think that's huge. And I mean, when you watch the film, I think there's a lot to like. I think you're going to come in, day one and be able to really compete for not just a job in the NFL. I think you're going to be able to compete for a starting job. So, hats off to you. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun watching you and your journey. With that said, how would you describe yourself as a quote unquote edge rusher?
I'm a hard worker. I'm going to get to it by any means. I work out a lot. I practice a lot. I work on a lot of different moves. I want to come down and I study a lot of film. I then stalk my opponent. And I got to know what he's going to do. I got to know his best. I got to know his worst. I got to know it all. That's going to help me going forward because, you can never know too much going into the game. And I feel like I'm right at that point. But if I feel like I know enough, I can go back and learn some more. When I've done enough, I can go back and do some more. But a lot of that is a credit to my strength and conditioning coach, Kurt Hester. He taught us never to be satisfied because even when you think you've done enough, you haven't done anything. And up to this point, I still feel like, the facts and the numbers are good, but I still feel like there's a lot of more work to be done going forward.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I also really like that answer as well. And, I do think I think you have quite the arsenal of pass rushing maneuvers, definitely when I watch you. Who would you compare your game to at this point in your career?
At this point, body-wise, I'm built more like a Jason Taylor, like a long pass rusher. I think I get after it, in the best I can get after him. I got a good speed move. I'm pretty strong. I got a very good counter move. So you can throw me in the ring with anybody and I can give them a run for their money. It might not be the best at the time, but I'm going to look at it, study it, go back from there, work on it. And next time they see me, they're going to see something different and get the best that I got at that time. I'm not holding back on anything, no matter the level of competition. I refuse to lose. I got an attitude that I won't lose and I won't be stopped at nothing. I just choose to do.
I like it. You mentioned Jason Taylor. Is that somebody that you really you watched growing up, and was that potentially your favorite player to watch?
I watched them. I learned it. I stalked them. It was like my opponent. I stalked him. I had to learn how he do it, why he do it, how he been that low, why he's saying how does me, how can he get down that low if he just tall, how he that strong and he that long, how does he do it? So I watch, I listen to his interviews, I listen to him talk, I listen to how he carries himself. I watch him a lot. Even to this day, you know, he's not playing no more. I still watch old film. I'm talking old Dolphin film. That's how far back I watch it. It puts you on a different level. Just then you start thinking like the professional mentality. Thinking like, I'm not just a small school defensive end at Louisiana Tech. I want to be one of the best pass rushers in the nation. It don't matter. Khalil Mack, one of the best pass rushers right now, came out of Buffalo, small school. Nobody knew. I can't tell you what Buffalo is right now. I think it's in New York. So. Yeah, I think it is in New York.
It's
but
like
he come there, he worked. Not a world knows his name.
That's hilarious. I'm just not used to that because I mean, you know, I forget everyone else. Like you guys don't live in New York, so Buffalo is like 5 hours away from me. So I thought that was probably the funniest answer. I just recently interviewed Khalil Mack, but Khalil Hodge from Buffalo. So it's funny that you would bring that up. But yeah, what would you say is your biggest strength? You know, like at this point, you know, in your career.
I'm a good student of the game. I study the game a lot, and I work. I don't just study and don't work. I just on a muscle head, go to the weight room and lift and scream and holler. Then just don't do that on the field. Everything I do, it has a purpose. Everything I study has a purpose. All my moves I work, it has a purpose. Everything I do outside, everything you do with intent. Don't just go into a rush not knowing what you're doing. I'm going to a rush, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm ready for him to count. I've been studying my week. I'm ready for him. I'm ready for everything he's going to do. In the worst case scenario, I'm not ready. I come off the field, catch my breath, reevaluate myself. I got somebody on the sideline watching me. I got my coach up in the box watching me, saying what I'm doing wrong. I'm not afraid to take criticism. I don't mind. I actually prefer to take criticism. Because I can get better if I know what I'm doing wrong. I can't be, just tell me, yeah, you're doing good all the time. It can't be like that all the time. Can't be good doing that.
And you mentioned criticism. What do you feel you have to improve on at the next level?
I got to improve on my motor. I got to improve on my bend. I got to get stronger. Because I'm pretty strong now, but, you know, in the league, it's a lot of strong people. There's greater competition. No discredit to Tech or Country USA, but it's not the same competition. I played Mississippi State this year. I got 2 sacks against Mississippi State, so that's pretty good. And I got 1 straight sack against LSU in Titan Stadium, so it's showing that my game is good and it's improving, but I feel like it could be so much good. I had 4 sacks in North Texas. Why can't I get 4 at LSU? Why can't I get 4 at Mississippi State? And no difference in it. It's just working hard, studying more, being better in my technique, being more technique sound. Being able to produce more and do more. If I can do more, why not do it?
Yeah, I will say this, Jaylon. You know, you may not be getting, you know, the sack amount that you want, but if I've learned anything from watching this game, I mean, you can't stress enough how important the amount of pressure you yourself are putting on a quarterback, and how that is setting up everything else for your teammates. Because even though you don't get the sack and someone else does, I mean, you caused that. And to me, there really needs to be a stat for that. And I know there's pressures and hits and all of that, but there needs to be like an assist or something where, because, you know, I'm Rams fan, Rams podcast. I watch Aaron Donald terrorize quarterbacks all game long, and he'll have 14 pressures, and then at the end of the day is a half a sack. And you're like, how is this possible? You know, it's not all about that number, but that number definitely flashes. It definitely grabs people's attention for sure.
Yeah, I'm working out with Chuck Smith right now. You know, you tell me the pressure get you noticed, facts get you paid. But on the field, I don't mind. If I get really attention, I don't mind. Because I'm not out there by myself. I got 10 more bad dogs, you know, all the time. Everybody, every single one of them on go in all the time. So if all the attention come to me, that's not really good for you. If you got to change your whole scheme for me, that's not really good. Because I still got 10 dogs with me right now, foaming at the mouth, ready to go right now at this second. And they all jumping in behind me. I'm jumping in behind them. So they can focus on me if they want to. They'll be more worried about the Bulldogs than Ferg.
Yeah, I hear you there. Jaylon, who would you say is the toughest player you went up against in your college career?
Forrest Lamp from West Kentucky. I think he played with the Los Angeles Chargers right now. I played him when I was my red shirt freshman year. I was kind of young then, but it was my toughest opponent ever been against. I tried to counter him, clubbing his arm. He had his arm taped up from his wrist all the way up to his, almost all the way up to his elbow. I was clubbing. When he just went boom. That's probably the reason why he got drafted now. But I look forward to playing him again. I can't wait to see him again.
I remember Forrest Lamp in the draft. I mean, he was something fun to watch. I believe it was Western Kentucky, and I mean he just, it's funny how everyone was saying, well, he's a guard. I was like, well, he's holding his own at tackle, and then
he hold his own at tackle. I know people say because he's short, and short don't really work in the league, but hey, when the man wants to, he can get you. If you want to get to you, he'll get to you. If you don't want to get past him, you won't get past him. But I got some moves for him from again with Tyson again, even as a teammate as with opponent. Either way, I can't wait to face him again.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. I mean, it's pretty crazy, and I love that you brought that up because he was short. One of my biggest issues covering the draft is how everyone wants to, like, you remember obviously Lamar Jackson last year, everyone wanted to say he was a receiver, or let's put this guy at guard because he's short. It's just like the guard and tackle, that whole conversation thing. I can't with that. And now that you're saying that, I mean, now there you go, but he's in LA.
One thing I learned is that it's all about the intangible.
Oh, absolutely.
Not what you can measure. It's not nothing you can measure. You can't measure a player heart. You can't measure his game. All you do is measure his size and say, this is what he can do it. This is what it looks like he does. But the only person who knows that for sure is the player.
That's a real good point. What would you say is your ideal role at the next level?
Pass rusher, third down pass rusher. Anytime you need a quarterback to be sacked, I'm coming on the field. The NFL is turning almost to a passing game now, so that's like every back down.
Yeah, I hear you there. Obviously we talk about sacks throughout this entire podcast, and I have to ask you the big question. I mean, I'm not trying to put an X on your back or anything, but there are 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Who would you want to sack the most?
Right now?
Yes.
Deshaun Watson.
Interesting. What makes you want to sack Deshaun Watson so bad?
Because he looks like an athletic quarterback. He's like one of the most athletic quarterbacks that's playing up to date right now. And it's easy to get after somebody who just move around in the pocket, but it's harder to get after somebody who's going to step up, who's going to move around and run. All Patrick Mahomes. I played him when he was at Texas Tech, and yeah, they did a number on us, so it's a little revenge deal.
I like that. That's a good answer. Yeah, so what made you want to play this game and eventually pursue a career in it?
Growing up, my father played the game, and I can remember when we was little, and my brothers used to play with these trophies all the time, and just looking up to it. And everybody around us always played football, but it never went no further than high school. I feel like, well, more than me and my brothers feel like we can step out that mold. We can step out and do something different and show everybody that, San Francisco got some pretty good players. San Francisco is a small town in Louisiana. I don't really expect you to hear it, but you're going to hear about it at the draft.
Yeah. And, with that, which teams, if you can recall any, have scouted you so far?
I can't recall the teams right now. I don't like to think about it. I like to think about the work that I'm putting in and let the work show for itself. I don't really like to recall a number for what number I'm supposed to be projected, what round. I don't really matter to me right now. Right now I gotta worry about the Senior Bowl, then I gotta worry about the Combine, then Pro Day, and getting everything ready. But for right now, it's not too much on my mind.
Yeah, I like that. I sense you got some tunnel vision. Your eyes on the prize. I like that. Obviously, you mentioned the Senior Bowl, and you accepted the invitation. First off, congratulations. Second, is there anything that you're trying to show off in front of these scouts, coaches, and even fans alike?
I'm just trying to show that it don't matter the competition. It's all about the player and the skill level of the player. I feel like I work hard enough that I can perform against any talent I have. I'm against in big games and small games, and still don't get the recognition I deserve. So right now, it's just gonna be an eye-opening experience for everybody there. Like this little kid out of Louisiana Tech and really rush it. But that's my goal, to show the world that we can do that. Louisiana Tech. We got 5 bowl rings. I don't know how many schools got 5 bowl rings back to back to back to back to back. You know, I feel like the players on the team don't get enough credit. Coaching staff, they get credit, but they don't get enough. We don't get enough love as we should. And I want to step out and show the world, Louisiana Tech here, we exist. We're not just in Conference USA slowly down the way. We here, we exist. We thrive, and we putting the players in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I think that's definitely the right way to look at that. I mean, you keep, if say, Jaylon Ferguson steps up to the plate, makes Louisiana Tech known, and then you could have another guy that's, trying to figure out what school he wants to commit, and, he saw what you did, and he goes there, and then you kind of, it's kind of a whole, I guess, a domino effect. But, I mean, you guys have had some serious talent out there. Like, I'm not going to lie, Jeff Driscoll started this year, for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Kenneth Dixon, and Vernon Butler's a guy I really liked in the draft, and Quentin Patton,
Woods,
and
Xavier
Boston
Woods
Scott, and Xavier Woods has been great. We'll see him a lot. Kentrell Bryce and don't forget Trent Taylor and Carlos Henderson. So I mean, they're
so we got a lot of good players. I just feel like the school as a whole don't get recognized enough for putting out NFL talent, and we do have a lot of NFL talent.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I definitely do. I mean, Willie Rofe, Hall of Fame talent, went there, and I think that's all I can recall off the top of my head. But
we had Terry Bradshaw, no one draft pick.
Ah, there we go. See, you need to show you need to educate people.
We got Big Willie. We got a lot of great things. We got 3 players in the Hall of Fame right now. That's counting Terry Bradshaw. So I feel like we got a lot of players right now whose career just starting in the league. I feel like players like Trent, Xavier Woods, Brandon Butler, Kentrell Bryce, Kenneth Dixon, all them players who are going to play for a long time. They're not just here for right now. They're going to play for a long time.
Yeah. Also, by the way, Jay, you got to give me props for that because I actually knew quite a few. I'm sure I surprised you.
Oh, yeah, you did. More than most. Most people just say Jeff Driscoll because he came from Florida and Brandon Butler because he was first round pick. But now TT logging in work. He putting in work every day. Xavier is one of the most reliable players I know. You know him, every position on the field. He's still showing up into the league this day. That's why he getting paid. And I feel like we all active and they're making their money. And I like to think a lot of those guys to open up the doors for fans like me. Because, it took a Vernon Butler to get drafted first. And, you talk about Vernon, you got to look on the outside. You talking about TT at practice. You watch TT at practice. Before he get the ball, I'm coming to go sack him on the ball. You talking about Jeff. I got after Jeff the whole first year. I tried to welcome him to Tech because I felt like he was going to be, coming from Florida. I thought he was going to have a different mindset than he did, but he came in ready to work. One of the best guys I met. So he shot
That's
me.
Awesome. That is awesome. Hey, I mean, I didn't, any of the guys that I listed, unfortunately, none of them are Rams. So hopefully we'll add a Louisiana Tech guy to the list of Rams. I would love to see you in Horns. one last thing, but before I let you go, and I appreciate your time and everything.
Yeah.
What can my fans leave you on? Let's see here. Who is Jaylon Ferguson?
Well, I'm a hard worker. I'm a SAG daddy right now. And everything I want to do, I'm coming in with my head down. All the stuff I accomplished in college is good, but it's in college. Like I'm resetting my clock, starting all over again. Freshman on campus again, stepping my foot. I'm just coming in with my head down, ready to work, trying to earn my spot this year, play my role. If I come to Los Angeles, oh man, that'd be beautiful. I get to learn behind some great players. If I don't play, I still get to sit in the same room with some of the best fans versus and learn and take in some of the stuff that they know. And when it's my time is going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. Because it is a game at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it'd be awesome to have you. Obviously, there's a lot of talent there. Aaron Donald, Sue's
Michael
there
Brockers.
right now. Brockers.
Yeah.
Glad that you brought Michael Brockers. He often gets he doesn't get talked about enough. And friend of the podcast, John Franklin Myers, as well as Samson Ibukam. There's some guys out there, and hopefully Dante Fowler's back next year. So, a lot of talent. I think that would be a really good fit for you. But regardless, man, wherever you go, I'm a fan for life. I'll be rooting for you, following you, and let's stay in touch. And I'm hoping to get to meet you at the Senior Bowl.
Let's do it, Dan. I'm hoping to meet you too, educate you more about, a little Southern hospitality. We up there, we down here in a little bit Louisiana. But, hopefully I can show you that Louisiana got a lot of stuff to offer.
Absolutely. Sounds like a plan. I'll definitely be honing in on those one-on-ones. I think you're going to really turn some heads, so I'm looking forward to it. Hey, until then, stay healthy, take care, and we'll talk soon, my man.
All right. See you at the Senior Bowl, then.
See you at the Senior Bowl. All right, guys, that was Jaylon Ferguson. Hope you guys enjoyed. It was a lot of fun, and we love doing the player interviews on here, so stay tuned. I have plenty more where that came from. But now we're on to the NFL free agency, and we'll start with the quarterbacks, Alexis, because we basically just shunned Sean Mannion from the Rams. So What are we doing here? Are we going in the draft? Are we looking at the AAF kid, Luis Perez, or are we going with backup?
I kind of want us to take someone in the draft, honestly. I think that this draft is a draft that there's not so many obvious quarterback stars, first round, second round guys. But I think that the depth guys, the 4th, 5th, 6th round prospects actually have a lot of potential, and I like them a lot. Why not?
Yeah, you mentioned Clayton Thorson, last podcast. I do think that would make sense. I like guys like Gardner Minshew. I like Tyree Jackson because potential. And I would really like somebody like Brett Ripien. His uncle, I believe it's his uncle, Mark, played for the Rams back in, I believe it was 95 when Isaac Bruce had that incredible season. I don't know. I feel like he'd probably be the best option. He's also rated really high on my board, so I would like that. I kind of lean with you. I know Alex mentioned, we kind of laughed at him and made fun of him for it, but he mentioned McCown. I don't see that. Everything I'm hearing is that he's going to end up being like a quarterback's coach. I don't think he wants to play anyway.
Yeah, and the only reason that I think it would be beneficial to bring in a veteran guy in that backup quarterback position is for that exact reason. It's a veteran guy. It's it's a veteran presence. But at this point, I'm not sure that Jared Goff is in dire need of having a veteran backup. He's accomplishing a lot. He just went to a Super Bowl, but I mean, it couldn't hurt to have some veteran leadership. But I mean, I think I would, if I was the Rams, I would just draft someone.
See, I couldn't agree more. I think the veteran thing gets overhyped too much. I know they were trying to say that in the Super Bowl, that C.J. Anderson was this veteran presence for Todd Gurley. Like, give me a break. The guy's the best running back in the NFL. So I look at Jared Goff, and I'm like, he's gone past that issue. The veteran presence was when they had Dan Orlovsky. And the reason I say that is because he was in camp during that whole offseason. I know he didn't make the roster. I know he's not on the roster. It wasn't Sean Mannion that knew what he was talking about. It was Dan Orlovsky, a veteran that has been in the league for a while. He's still, you see him on Twitter. Dude knows what he's talking about. He's an analyst. He's a great one at that. And I think he really helped Goff. It just, I don't know how much Mannion helped. I think it was more having the veteran presence if Goff got hurt. That's why I feel like that's a little misjudged where, when people are like, oh, Goff needs a mentor. No, he's past that. He was the youngest NFC champion to go to a Super Bowl at quarterback. So I don't know what else to say at that point. I mean, obviously he didn't get it done, but he's also 24, and his story has not been finished. It's that simple.
Oh, I agree. I think that the Rams will make a move, probably 5th or 6th round this next draft.
And that's really like the best value, I think, in this draft. If you're looking for like a backup to develop, somebody like a Minshew, or Rippey might go higher, but I think Minshew, Clayton Thorson, guys like that definitely make a lot of sense. But, moving on, re-sign, sign back. Where are we going with the running backs here? Because, basically we came to a decision where Malcolm Brown, we're going to, rescind his restricted free agency rights and make him an unrestricted free agent to go and get that paycheck, go and get that starting job, bring back CJ. But do you bring back CJ, or do you sign somebody else? See, like, to me, I'm done with the running backs. I signed CJ or Malcolm, and that's it. I don't even touch free agency. I would consider the draft depending on my board and how it went, because you have to play how the draft flow goes. I mean, if somebody like Rodney Anderson sitting there in the 5th round, I think the Rams would entertain that.
Right. Yeah, I kind of come from the standpoint, like you said, I think we bring back CJ and we're done. And theoretically, you could bring back CJ and Malcolm but I just don't think that they would do that to Malcolm and having him in that 3rd running back role.
I agree. It would be fun to see how they would use all 3, but I think just make it simple. Gurley, CJ, maybe sign a 2-year deal. I know that's what they were interested in. So Gurley, CJ, and then you have John Kelly and Justin Davis fighting out for the back of the end of the depth chart. I think that's the way it should go. And then you'll have your UDFA. They always grab a UDFA. They got Aaron Green a few years back. They got Trey Watts. Malcolm Brown is the 2015 one. So, they do well in that department. They'll probably find somebody, and they'll make a run for their money at somebody like Justin Davis or John Kelly. So I think they're good there. Here's the thing with receivers. Deshaun Jackson came out and said he wanted to sign with the Rams. Now, the Rams don't need him, but I look at it like this. If they sign him for cheap, I'll take it. Like, if he would decide for really cheap, just say, I want to be on this team, I want to do that, it's another guy, it's another deep threat. I'll take it. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think you've got, kind of the trio. You've got Cooks, Woods, and Kupp. And then you've got Josh Reynolds, who actually pleasantly surprised me. I think he stepped in for Kupp, but I think if it came to Deshaun Jackson, I would maybe get rid of Reynolds. I don't think you can have all 5 of them there, but why not? I mean, who knows? I'm not sure the Rams are going to bite on Deshaun, though. That's the thing. I don't think that they're, of all the positions and everything in free agency that they're looking at, I don't really think that they're focusing on receivers.
Yeah, and I know, everyone's like, well, the connection's there with McVay, but, I mean, the connection was there with Spencer Long, and they just let him walk basically for free. They didn't have to trade for him or anything. He got cut and then signed a 3-year deal. that could have been their center, and he had the familiarity. So I don't really always go in that route. Tight ends is interesting because when I look at tight ends, last year, that late information that came out that Tyler Eifert was going to sign with the Rams and decide to stick with the Bengals. I bet he wishes he didn't do that. But
right.
Would you kick tires on Tyler Eifert again?
The only honest answer I can give is I don't know. It's a tough one because I do like when Tyler Eifert's healthy. Yes, but do I trust that? Not really. And then you've also got Everett and you've got Higbee. You're not going to be able to have all three. So then it comes down to, who do you pick and all this. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, in theory, I do feel like you could keep all three. It kind of goes along with what I believed in the TJ Hawkinson deal. But the fact is, how good is Tyler Eifert? We don't really know. I mean, he got hurt again. I just don't know if he's better than Higbee at this point. I mean, just like those injuries tear you down. I mean, Gronkowski looks like he's barely moving now. I know he was still a factor in the Super Bowl, but he's not the same best tight end I've ever watched. He's changed, and that's because of injuries. Tyler Eifert has suffered injury after injury, and he suffered a gruesome knee injury, I believe. That was him. It was 2 years ago or a year ago. I
remember that.
Yeah, it's just I personally I would kick tires on tight ends in the draft, but I wouldn't touch a guy that might be marginally better than Tyler Higbee.
Right, and I like Eifert. Don't get me wrong. He played for Notre Dame, which is like my team. So I watched him in college and was incredible there. And I thought he was going to do, a lot in the NFL. But, like you said, injuries, they really take a toll. And I don't know if he's someone who is, I don't want to say worth it, but I don't think he's that superstar caliber guy that you risk signing and taking a bet on him.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't do it either, but moving on, tackles. I'm not really interested in even looking at the tackle. Maybe Jake Fisher, just based on his athleticism, coming from the Bengals. He kind of got phased out. I look at Jake Fisher as he could be an interesting option at 26 years old. And then, there's guys like Cameron Fleming, but I just feel like you're getting the bottom of the barrel there. The Bobby Harts of the world. I feel like Jake Fisher is the only one I would consider, and it would have to be for a reasonable price.
Right, and I think it really just depends on if Whitworth retires or not.
Yeah, that's also another thing. And he's not necessarily going to even start like the guy I get. Like, I'm not touching Eric Flowers. I don't think any Rams fan would ever want to see Greg Robinson back there again. There are some interesting names from the past, but Ty and Sicky, who used to be with the Rams, he really carved out a nice role with Washington. He's a 33-year-old free agent. Do you sign him? How much would that cost? That'd be an interesting one. And then I think the last one really that would even make sense bringing up is Jordan Mills from Buffalo, because the Buffalo connection with Aaron Cromer. So that would really be it for me. Oh, and also Cedric Abouye from the Bengals. He's 27, kind of like Jake Fisher. He also is a free agent. So that'll be interesting. I wouldn't touch the tackle class unless I can get Jake Fisher cheap.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think any of the tackle free agents are, intrigue me enough. I think if we are looking for that tackle to replace Whitworth, I think you do it in the draft.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Saffold obviously is 31 years old, so I could see the age being the reason they get rid of him. We're on to the guards now. I look at this and there are some guys out here, but they're exclusive rights free agents, so they're likely not even going to be available. Somebody that I really liked in the draft, Jermaine Illuminor. exclusive rights free agent. So again, he might not be available. Rashad Coward, a guy I liked at, defensive line. He moved over to guard. Thought that would be kind of interesting. Cole Toner. They're all exclusive rights free agents. So, really what it comes down to is a lot of these guys are not available. And, it's really funny. The only guy that really makes a total any bit of sense is the guy the Rams let go, and that's Jamon Brown. You talk about, 26 years old, UFA, so there's nothing to him. Maybe John Miller, again, from Buffalo, but aside from that, Jamon Brown would probably make the most sense, and I don't know if he wants to re-sign with the team that cut him, especially in a Super Bowl season.
Right. There's really no free agents that are worth it to me in the guard position, as opposed to, I think it would make so much more sense to just keep Saffold.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, okay, he's 31 years old. You can replace him. It's not the end of the world. He's still playing at a high level. So I'm not worried about that. As far as centers, there's not really any. Mitch Morse, but he'll get paid. Matt Paredes, 29 years old, he'll get paid. Brett Jones. So there are guys there. But Spencer Long, he ended up with $4 million a year. So you're looking around that probably for, a Brett Jones. But when you get into Paredes, you're probably looking at $6-7 million a year. I don't know if the Rams do that. I'm probably going to go with the fact that they're not going to sign any of these guys. Maybe B.J. Finney from Pittsburgh, 27 years old. He filled in for Pouncey. I thought he played significantly well. So I think you'd have to look at Finney. And, they do have J.J. Dielman. The Rams do, who's going to be a free agent from their practice squad. So, those are pretty much it. I wouldn't say there's really anybody else I'd look at in the centers.
Yeah, there's no one that I like enough in the center class other than Mitch Morse, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they're not getting Mitch Morse. I think he's going to get paid big time. I could be wrong, but,
Yeah.
I keep saying that now. All I think of is Stephen A. I think that's hilarious.
Right. I know. I keep trying to watch what I say. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I'm trying not to do that because I'll just think of him the whole time.
Yeah, and the way you're saying it, it's not even bad. It's just the way he said it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out this really bad take because I've never watched film on this guy. I could be wrong, but I'm just gonna take a shot at it. So moving on to defense tackles. Obviously, Ndamukong Suh is an option, not guaranteed, and he is 32 years old. We said he goes, so that's probably it for Suh. And then you have guys like Sheldon Richardson, 28 years old, interesting option there. Kyle Williams pretty much announced he was retiring, but if they wanted to try and lure him out of retirement, he's there. Muhammad Wilkerson, Benny Logan. So, there are names. Danny Shelton is probably the most intriguing at 25 years old, and Malcolm Brown, and they both come from New England.
And another kind of intriguing guy is Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, very intriguing. My issue is, how much are you going to have to shell out for him? He's looking for big-time money.
I don't know, though, because I kind of feel like he might come over for cheap, maybe for a year.
You could be onto something there, with Dontari Poe, what he did. That was a really interesting situation with him because Dontari Poe is somebody when he had the free agency rights, you felt like he was going to get a long-term deal, and he signed to two different teams for 1 year, so that was a little weird. There's some other guys here. I think the one that really stands out to me besides Grady Jarrett has to be a guy that I mentioned earlier in the year. That's Michael Pierce. This is somebody that's instantly going to change the way you defend the run. Once he gets his arms around you, you're not moving. He's one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. The problem is he is a restricted free agent, so the Rams would probably have to match an offer and probably have to give up a pick to get him. And I don't know what pick it would be, but if they could do it for cheap, a pick-wise, obviously they have to shell out some money for 26-year-old Michael Pierce. But, I mean, I might do it. He's that big of a game changer.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
He could be your anchor inside, but at the same time, that's the interesting thing about free agency. So if you're picky and you want that, $100 item, even though the $60 item is going to get you just as much, just maybe not as flashy. I mean, that's pretty much what Danny Shelton and Malcolm Brown are. They're just less flashy Michael Pierce.
True.
So it could be the interesting. They're both unrestricted free agents as well, so they're both available for the taking. I know everyone wants the Rams to go over Jonathan Hankins. I think it's a little worrisome that this guy just bounces around teams and doesn't get a long-term deal ever. So I'd probably avoid him. That's just me.
No, I agree with that, and I also think as far as the defensive tackle position goes, that's kind of what I think I'm wanting the Rams to draft first round, if not linebacker, but we'll see.
Yeah, of course. And then the edge position, because we have to talk about the edge. I know Brooks Reed is the first one that signed a deal. He signed with Arizona, but you have guys like Ezekiel Ansah who used to be really interesting options, but now he's 30. And it's funny. It's like this guy just picked up football, but the problem is he was such a late addition to football that, he's 30 now, and he's not really much of an option in my opinion. I don't really know how much he fits the scheme. And then you look at somebody like Brandon Graham, he's 31. Cameron Wake's 37. DeMarcus Lawrence is 27. I imagine he'll get a lot, maybe get tagged again. Fowler's 25, and the thing that should worry Rams fans is, look, Fowler might make more sense to just tag, because once he gets a taste of that free agency, it's going to be game over. Just look at all of these pass rushers, and then you see Fowler there at 25 years old, and a lot of these other guys, Frank Clark is obviously going to make a run for his money, but aside from that, a lot of these guys are 28, 29, 30, so that'll be an interesting one there. So obviously I think you have to look at, Lawrence, if the Rams are willing to pay that money, Dante Fowler, maybe reuniting with Will Hayes, that'd be interesting. Alex Okafor, kind of like a Band-Aid option. I really like Marcus Golden. I think he's somebody that played really well at Mizzou, and then he had a really good start to his career, but had some injuries, and he'd be a really cheap option, I think, at this point, and could really benefit in this scheme. I think he played kind of out of his element, being in that Steve Wilkes defense. And then, again, Frank Clark, you get stronger and you take away from your rival. So I think that's something to consider. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, when it comes to the edge position, obviously, you and I are in agreement that I think the first choice is to keep Fowler.
Oh, yeah.
If that doesn't happen, I think I go after somebody in the draft at that 31 position. And then if that is not what they want to do, or that doesn't work out, I think maybe sign somebody to like a 1 year or 2 year deal. You could give somebody a big deal, but I think the big thing is just the whole money issue. That's obviously, kind of what controls the whole thing. And it's just, what position do you want to dish out money to? And is it going to be that edge position?
Well, yeah, and then obviously, I mentioned Clowney earlier. He's 26 years old, but what are your thoughts on the Denver guys, Shaquille Barrett and Shane Ray? They might make sense because of familiarity with Wade.
Right. I like Shane Ray. I watched him play a lot in college. He is someone who I think could fit well on that Rams defense. The other guy you said, who'd you say? Shaquille
Barrett. That's the guy I like more. I just saw more out of him. I feel like Shane Ray is a bigger name.
Yeah. I think they both would work. And I don't see them as guys who are going to be wanting huge contracts either.
Yeah, you could see it out of one of them, but I do agree with you. Preston Smith is another guy that's been mentioned. Washington, obviously the familiarity there. I think that's really it for the edge. I mean, there's some other guys that trickle in there. I mean, Shalik Calhoun, you try to grab a guy that had a lot of potential coming out of college. Maybe Eli Harold, somebody that Detroit traded for. So, I mean, there are, guys out there. But moving on, we got to get Corey Littleton a buddy. And, what it comes down to is I think Mark Barron is gone. I think, the Rams are going to end up letting him go in some facet. So, that leaves Littleton next to who? I mean, they have Kaiser, they have Ramik Wilson, and Hager in our scenario. And I know Justin Lawler plays a little inside backer as well, kind of surprisingly. But they have those guys. But free agency, Preston Brown, Manti Te'o, C.J. Mosley, Stephon Anthony, Dion Buchanan, who I'd kind of avoid because Buchanan is just a spitting image to me of Barron. And I think the Rams need to get more filled out at that position. I don't know if you want a guy that's going to be that, kind of like that hybrid defensive back linebacker. That's just my take. And then Denzel Perryman's there, Craig Robertson, but I mean, he's older. So, I mean, there are definitely, options here. Kevin Minter, Quan Alexander is an interesting one. 25 years old. He is coming off a bad injury, but I feel like, he's somebody that really should already be extended. Jake Ryan's another guy.
That's who I was about to bring up.
Yeah.
I like him a lot, actually, and he's someone I think that you could get for relatively cheap.
Yeah, and then Patrick Onwuasor, I can't even say his name, from Baltimore, restricted option. Could be an interesting one there. Zach Vigil. So, I mean, there are guys. I don't know if the Rams will go after any of these linebackers, Jordan Hicks as well. But if I were to put my money on any of them going to the Rams, I'm probably going to say C.J. Mosley, because I feel like that is, if you're going out and you're spending money on a linebacker, it's going to be one of the top guys, because that's you saying, we love what we have in Corey Littleton. It's why we traded Alec Ogletree away, but we need that complementary piece to go with him. And you want more than a Barron. You want somebody that's going to be a game changer. And, I think somebody like C.J. Mosley can really make a difference.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, out of all the guys that you mentioned, I think he's the obvious choice. Obviously the one that I think most Rams fans would prefer.
Yeah. Quan Alexander's interesting because he's got so much of that athleticism that, I mean, he's kind of rare. Linebackers shouldn't be able to run like that. So, Alexander's one to keep in mind if teams, again, it's copycat league, if teams are trying to copy what you see, with the Dallas linebacker group, might make sense to go and grab him. But, corners. I think this is an interesting one because the Rams, on paper, don't need a corner. You look at it, you're like, oh, keep Talib. Marcus Peters, Nickel is signed through, I believe, 2021. So, there are options there. But the fact of the matter is Peters is going to be a free agent eventually. Talib is eventually going to retire. And then you're left with just Nickel. And, of course, Troy Hill is the, restricted free agent. Sam Shields is a UFA. So you do have to figure that room out. There's some interesting guys out there. I really like Bryce Callahan of Chicago. Suffered that injury, might lower his overall stock. Pierre Desir from Lindenwood College really came on strong in his contract season with the Colts.
He Lindenwood is in St. Louis.
I know it is. That's why I mentioned it.
And he's good. Obviously, another guy that I like is EJ Gaines.
I like.
Do you bring EJ Gaines? Like, I was, hoping that there's a chance that maybe the Rams, bring him back. This next season, obviously, he probably would be in kind of a backup role. But I mean, I think he's talented. I mean, EJ Gaines is somebody who's a starting quality corner, I believe.
I agree. I mean, he was one of the highest rated corners, and the Bills let him go. And that kind of boggled my mind. But I remember reaching out to him on Instagram, and I was like, EJ, you should come to the Rams, kind of like joking. And like he was never going to respond. And then he responds, and he's like, I'll come if they want me. And I'm like, what? So, that was kind of a missed thing there. I think he could have added. Kayvon Webster, friend of the podcast. I love Kayvon to death. I mean, I'd love to bring him back. Problem is, it's just he's always hurt. I feel so bad for the guy. He's constantly getting hurt, and I'm just wishing him the best of luck, obviously. And if the Rams want to bring him back, I'm all for it.
Another guy to watch out for is BW Webb.
I wouldn't touch BW Webb with 10-foot pole.
You don't like him?
I can't stand him. I watch a lot of Giants games. A lot of my friends are Giants fans, and I'm from upstate New York, so I look at BW Webb and I'm like, total liability. PFF called him a total liability with his 30-something grade. I wouldn't touch him, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a starting guy, but if you're talking about depth, he had some plays this year that impressed me.
I mean, Bradley Roby's an option. Jason Verrett, depending on how well, you would really have to put an emphasis on a medical check for him because, I mean, he's always hurt. And, I mean, I think it's worse than Kayvon because this is somebody, since he entered the league at TCU, he's had injury after injury. So, definitely you'd have to check out that one. There are other guys as well. I wouldn't touch Cody Sensabaugh because, obviously, Eric Rowe is an interesting option, I think. Ronald Darby is going to get paid. I mean, he's 25 years old, and I do think he's a solid corner. Bashad Breeland, surprisingly, didn't really have much of a market, signed late. He's also another one. I think there are a lot of, different options out there. Really, whatever you're looking for, whether you're looking for depth or you're looking for a starter. Steven Nelson looked awful to start the season, but he really flashed towards the end of the year. So, I wonder about him. There are guys. I mean, Mike Hilton, if the Steelers don't sign him, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, he's by far the best corner on their team, and he's one of the best nickel corners in the league. So, that's another option there. And, I'm really excited. I hope the Rams re-sign Kevin Peterson because I'm really excited to see him. 25 years old, was a huge fan of him coming out of Oklahoma State. Felt like he was more of a 4th, 5th round guy that, somehow went undrafted. I think he fits well, and I think the Rams like him a lot. And unfortunately, he suffered that season-ending injury, but I think he'll be back, and I think he'll be ready to go. And I'd love to see him back because I think he could fit into the 4th cornerback role.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So, I think we hit it on the head there. I mean, there are tons of corners, all shapes and sizes, literally. And then, obviously the safety position because, we talk about that, and John Johnson's a total stud. But LaMarcus Joyner, they're not going to pay him more than they paid him, this past year at over $11 million. Earl Thomas is an option at 30 years old, probably like a 2-year, 3-year option. Tyrann Mathieu, and then I think you have to look at somebody, maybe even like a Reggie Nelson, if you're looking for just, kind of a Band-Aid and then try to develop a safety behind him. Reggie Nelson, 35 years old, still plays a decent game. Then when you really get into it, Mike Adams, who just is like the ageless Mike Adams, 30 years old, and he just continues to ball out. He'd be another option. Jimmy Ward. I really like HaHa Clinton Dix, and I'm not really sure that Washington is going to bring it back, even though they gave up picks for him. I don't know why the Packers traded him to begin with, so I would definitely be interested in him. You mentioned Landon Collins. He's the youngest of the bunch, so that would be a really good pickup. Trey Boston, Adrian Phillips, Kenny Vaccaro. Eric Reed's already signed. Bummer, because I really like Eric Reed. There are definitely guys out there. George Iloka, if you're looking for a 6'4" free safety. Mo Alexander, So they're, again,
love Mo.
I know, I really like Mo as well. Bummer with all of what happened there. But, and then I think the last one would be Brianne Body Calhoun. I like him a lot with the Browns. He can play every position in the secondary. Could be an interesting one. And actually, the last one would really be the guy that if the Chicago Bears don't sign, they're going to regret it. Adrian Amos, because he has been a star, and he's 26 years old, and now he's going to get paid. So, the Rams really can go multiple different avenues, and I think they have the ability to move John Johnson to free safety if they feel they can get really good value and they need to move for fit. So if you wanted a guy like Adrian Amos, I feel like you could play him at strong safety. You could play him at free. They could be interchangeable.
Right. Yeah. And, I think there's a lot of different options and things that the Rams can do this season at safety. And I'll be interested to see what they do, especially, first and foremost with Joyner. It kind of starts there.
Yeah. No, it's definitely going to start there. And, we'll be watching, obviously. It's going to be a fun off season, regardless how the free agency goes. You can always repair it with the draft and, vice versa. So, I think that's going to do it. Do you have any additional things you want to add?
No, other than just tweet me, anything that people should just tweet me anything they don't agree with. 'Cause I enjoy it. Just taking heat on Twitter, 24/7.
Oh boy.
I look forward to it.
It's at the Alexis Kraft. So go follow her.
At the Alexis Kraft. I respond and I want you to tell me what you don't agree with, what you agreed with, but preferably what you didn't agree with, and just let me have it. That's part of the fun with, I think, off season, mock draft season and free agency is it's funny to see how, people get really opinionated on things, and rightfully so. But the truth of the matter is none of us are going to accurately predict what's going to happen.
That is very true.
Every year we all think that we figure it out, and then most of the time something happens that we never would have seen coming. So it's just part of the fun of it. That's why it's so fun to talk about it and to research and things like that. Yeah,
for the people that don't like when I pat myself on the back, I'm always quick to basically self-scout. I would offer, Alexis, I think we should do a self-scout podcast where we go back and we just list every bad take we ever had.
Oh God.
I feel like we should do it. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and then we could do it after all of talking about how bad we are, then put all our hits. I mean, I'm down. It's probably going to be me tweeting every single year that it's the Rams' year. Let's start there. I could go back to 2012. That would be me. Or Sam Bradford for MVP or something like that. But no, that's a really good idea. We should do that. There's nothing I love more than embarrassing myself on a public platform. So, I mean, hey, I'd have like highlights because I'd have like, I was all for George Kittle. And then I would have the lowlights with, why the hell did the Rams draft John Johnson? He was the guy that I had in the 6th round. Well, you should have seen when we do, I'll bring up the exact tweet, when we decided to do this, but me pissed, like super mad that we drafted Gurley. Yeah, I was indifferent because I didn't really like the options. I was kind of, I was like, Melvin Gordon's my number one running back, but I don't want to draft a running back this early. And Devontae Parker's kind of the guy that I'm just, like, I've settled with because everyone's like, it'll be Devontae Parker. So I'm like, all right, fine. But that was really the draft where I was kind of like, whatever happens. I really just wanted Lyle Collins, and I hated that they wouldn't spend one pick on him. And the fact that he basically got, red flagged for trying to help the police officer and all the investigated people just to locate and give them information on his ex-girlfriend that was murdered. Like, I hated that so much because I was kind of like, he didn't even do anything, and he was just trying to help the authorities, and he got red flagged because of it. So that was the only one for me in that draft where I was like, Lyle Collins, draft him now.
Guess who I was tweeting during that draft that I wanted the Rams to take so bad. I think it was number 10, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was number 10. If you can guess out of all those people who I was like, we have to get this guy. Like, he's the guy.
Well, now I'm trying to remember who was in the class.
Oh, true.
I don't know. You have to tell me.
It was Kevin White.
Kevin White. You know, that makes sense though. I watched Kevin White because you know when I went to Hudson Valley, Kevin White, the community college around here, Kevin White played our team, and I've never seen so many touchdowns scored in a game before. I mean, he looked like can't miss. Man amongst boys. The 6'4" frame that he had. I mean, it was like a no-brainer, and then I don't know what happened with him. I don't get it.
You know, he was a guy who was scary, you know, and then the draft happened, and the Bears took him at 8, I think. It was 7 or 8.
Oh, my God. It's
the
the
Bears
8th
took
pick.
him. Yeah, the 8th pick, the Bears took him, and then he tore his, I think it was his ACL, his like preseason, like right away. And then, you know, never really bounced back from that. And now he's a guy, he's still in the Bears, but he's the 4th guy. And, you know, not at all what I was thinking was going to happen with him.
Yeah. I think my least favorite injury story, I mean, obviously Stemmen Bailey's up there because the gunshot wound. But I would probably say my least favorite is Denari Alexander. I think this is somebody that was the next Randy Moss. I think the Rams had the next Randy Moss. He was the only one built like Moss, ran like Moss. You know, he just didn't have, you know, playing knees. I mean, like literally had 7 different knee operations. I feel for him because he's somebody that should have ended up being a Hall of Famer and ends up being a guy that people forget. And I always bring up the San Diego Chargers, Denari Alexander as well, because while people will say, where were his stats at the Rams? I'll say, okay, well, Fisher cut him, and then when Fisher cut him, he went to the San Diego Chargers and propelled them in the passing game. He had like 800 yards in like 7 games. So, like, you know, he was awesome, and I hated the knee injuries for him. I mean, I think Bradford would have amounted into something as well, but really more so Denari Alexander. Superstar potential in my mind.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was unfortunate. You know, Alexander, and I remember when he played for Mizzou.
Oh, I do too. Kansas fan.
Yeah.
Big 12 championship game.
Oh, yeah.
Him, Jeremy
how
Maclin,
funny you bring that up.
Chase Kaufman.
Yeah, but that was unfortunate. And then the Bradford thing is you know, a whole unfortunate story. But yeah, I think Bradford is a guy who could have been a superstar as well, and didn't have anyone protecting him, you know, got hurt, and you know, now he is where he is. But injuries can do that to, you know, unfortunately, we've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
Especially with the Rams, I feel. But
yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, we should do a bad take. I mean, that could get really depressing, but it needs to happen, because I think part of me needs to relive that a little bit, you know, humble myself for when I start thinking that I'm going to start predicting everything right. I need to remind myself that I have not.
Yeah, as long as we keep it football, because like my college basketball stuff would be laughable, because I just had Kansas winning every year, and then like I mean they're top 4 team every year, but even worse, like I'd have like, because I was just like a bitter little child, and I'd have like the best teams losing in round 1. Like my brackets were always like the top teams lost early on, and Kansas somehow managed to win every single year, and they're the greatest franchise ever because they apparently won 13 national titles. But
yeah,
I mean that's we'll keep that football, and even that will be hilarious. Like when I said
it will be.
Oh God, I'm trying to remember who I said it was going to be.
I'm not going to say my best because I'll save it.
Yeah,
I'll save it. I have to prepare myself. I have to just emotionally get to that place where I can, you know, talk about it. But there's some pretty bad ones.
Well, I mean, I was huge on Todd Bowles. I thought the Rams should hire him originally. There are guys like that. I thought Reggie Bush was going to be the greatest running back ever.
Oh, me too. I remember when he was in his I think it was 2 years or might have been 3. His prime with the Saints. I was like,
he got blasted by Sheldon Brown. I've never seen a running back get hit that hard ever.
I think I remember that.
He started throwing up.
I know that he's not fond of the Rams because of that whole ACL thing.
Yeah, and I mean,
which was I think he took that a little too far. I mean, it wasn't, well, whatever. It is what it is, but I think he might have over exaggerated a bit with that.
Just a tad, right?
Yeah. He only sued us, so
I mean, yeah, that whole thing was kind of odd. I don't know. I mean, now the problem is having you on just makes me miss the St. Louis Rams because I know those were the teams I watched. Don't get me wrong, I love LA. It's pretty much the root of my fandom because through my dad. But
right.
That was my team growing up. I know a lot of kids. We're a little bit older than some of the other people on Twitter. And they don't even know who the Seattle Supersonics are, for instance. And right. Whereas you and I remember when Steven Jackson had that game-winning touchdown against the Redskins, and we're sitting there hoping teams lose so the Rams can make the playoffs after they had already played their game. That, we remember stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said. It's really easy to be a fan of a team when they win all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to knock teams for winning because you want to win, but I think sometimes it's good for you to go through a period of time where you're a fan of just a really sucky team. I think it builds character. I really think that there's something to be said about someone. It really, shows how big of a fan you are. If you're watching every game when they're just getting pummeled every week, and I think that's something that makes the success now with the Rams, I think, so much sweeter because you and I watched them for 11. I think there was 11 straight seasons where they didn't have a winning record. They were just terrible. But at the same time, it's in a weird way, I kind of miss it. Like you said, I grew up with the St. Louis Rams, so it's weird. It's it's different, but it's still good.
Yeah, and when I say St. Louis Rams, I talk about those rosters, and I'm talking about guys like Oshimego Atagwe that the LA fan that may have disconnected from the Rams, during that time, didn't get a chance to watch, or I'm talking about the Tommy Pollies of the world. I'm talking about even just watching Ryan Fitzpatrick, lead the Rams back and winning the game against the Houston Texans. I remember that, the rookie out of Harvard,
and even
it's crazy.
It is, and you think even as recently as that, the second to last and last year that they were in St. Louis, people forget the Rams' defense was insane even then. You had Chris Long, Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, Robert Quinn on that forefront, and then you had Alec Ogletree, James Laurinaitis, and I think it was Mark Barron, and then you had Trumaine Johnson, Ronnie McLeod or McLeod, TJ McDonald, and Janoris Jenkins. That's insane.
Oh yeah.
People didn't appreciate, and it's just funny because I remember watching and you're like, oh yeah, we got such a good defense, but it's you don't truly appreciate it. You have to look back and be like, that was crazy that we had. It's crazier that we had all those guys and still, couldn't seem to win. But
I remember when they signed Nick Fairley and everyone lost their mind.
Right. We had Nick Foles. We had Case Keenum. All the pieces were there. And we can get in, it's a whole different podcast of how I feel about the Rams declining in those last years in St. Louis. But, it is fun to, it is, as you said, it does make, sometimes I do, miss the St. Louis Rams. And by sometimes, I mean every minute of every day. But
it's understandable. There are those guys that, if you're like me, I sit there and I'll watch, I figure out a way if I can't, I'm not near a TV that has it or anything, I will watch preseason games for the Rams. Like, I remember Sam Kingato when they got him, and he was great. And in preseason, I remember, when they got what's his face? So obviously Cadillac Williams, but Michael. I want to say Michael Pittman. They might have gotten Michael Pittman. No. It was the other guy, Antonio Pittman. I remember when they had him from Ohio State. Obviously Trung candidate. Just different guys like that. Drew Bennett. I remember when they paid him all that money. And Jared Cook. I remember where I was when I was at this place called Brickhouse Pizza, and actually it was Arizona Pizza, I believe. And they announced Jared Cook had signed with the Rams for $8 million for 5 years. And I was like, oh my God, who is this? Like,
it's funny. There's I can remember the moment, obviously, when Sam Bradford and Nick Foles got traded. And I remember like being ecstatic.
Oh yeah.
And it's just crazy. And Nick Foles, look at him. I mean, he won a Super Bowl, and Bradford is where he is, and I think the Rams won that trade, but it's just you remember certain things, and but there is an era of, I'd say, I'd say starting from about the 2003 Rams until about the 2013 Rams, like just before, a little bit after Bradford got drafted. That only people who are around our age and older can appreciate.
I mean, if you remember Fakir Brown starting at cornerback, you're a real Rams fan.
Right. I mean, and it's funny because a lot of the guys, I don't know if you remember, like Andy McCollum.
Oh yeah.
He literally, he's friends with my dad because we all went to the same church, and he works right by my house. I see him all the time. He walks out of his work, and I'll be walking into my post office, which is kind of by where he works. And it's just, and it's just crazy because sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm like, oh my God, like, remember when he played for the Rams? And oh my God, remember the Rams were in St. Louis? And it's just crazy. We could do a whole podcast about it, but I mean, it really is, a whole different era, but it made us stronger, right? It made us, we had to go through all that pain and suffering to get where we are now.
Oh, without a doubt. Like I said, I mean, I'm the biggest, fan of. I'm the biggest person when it comes to, if you want to join the bandwagon, get on here. But and I don't even, I'm not even the person that's like, but don't act like you were a fan all this time. I don't even care if you do. You just physically won't feel the amount of joy that other Rams fans will, when they win the Super Bowl or when they get to the Super Bowl. Because, I was talking to Brad earlier from Locked On Rams, friend of mine, and we were talking about this, and it's like, wasn't it kind of weird? Like, I felt this anyway, where I was kind of cool with whatever happened in the Super Bowl. I was just so glad that we got there, and my tone changed, because if you heard the podcast before that, I was all like, nope, it's a losing season if they don't, but I really was just so, like, I was fine. I was content. It was like, the Rams are in the Super Bowl. Regardless if they win or lose, they're going back. Like, I don't have to worry about that. They hired Sean McVay. Like, that culture will remain. And I don't see, a Greatest Show on Turf tailspin happening anytime soon, because a lot of that came down to the fact it went to the quarterback position. A lot of them, Kurt Warner lost a lot of trust from the coaching staff. Just things didn't go the right way. There's a lot of, I guess, kind of like negative attitude in the locker room. They let that loss completely change them and mold them what they ended up becoming. And I can tell you right now, there were a lot of players in that locker room anyway that were really pissed that, for instance, London Fletcher didn't get re-signed. Like, I've been told that from players that were in that locker room. So, it's stuff like that where eventually that just kind of eats up at you.
Right. And I was just about to make a point. Oh yeah. So, like, how you were saying, and when I look at where the Rams are now, I remember when I was a kid, and this was probably 2006, maybe 2007. I had a Mark Bulger jersey and I wore it to school, and I was just hounded and people were like, just for, they're like, haven't you given up on the Rams yet? And these are just kids and how kids are. But I just remember, just suffering for so long.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's like, I can appreciate, like, I think, and I don't want to say, and this isn't a dig towards like, Patriots fans or anything, because they are truly, truly dedicated diehard fans. But like, I think that when you win so much for so long, you become a little bit complacent and you almost expect it.
Oh yeah.
And I think when you go through it so long of not winning, I think you might in a way appreciate it more. Even that we lost, okay? Like, we lost to the Patriots. It is what it is. But I still think the Patriots fans, it's like another win for them. But like, we were I thought I was going to be so devastated after that game. Like, I was like, if we lose, I'm going to be crushed. And I remember, like, I just watched us lose and like, I was bummed, but I was like, we still made it, like it's the fact that like, it still blows my mind that, and it doesn't blow my mind because the Rams are super talented and they deserve to be there, that I even got to watch my team in a Super Bowl, because for so long, I didn't think it would happen again. And
I agree.
It's crazy, and you appreciate it more when you've gone through the hard times, and I do miss those players a lot. I do think about a lot of the St. Louis Rams a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun, because I don't know if you followed last offseason, but I had the Throwback Thursday podcasts where I had Tommy Polly, and I had Jimmy Kennedy and Victor Adeyanju and Dexter McLeon, and it's just amazing hearing those stories. I mean, those guys, they all played together. They all, who's the biggest competitor? Torrey Holt,
right?
It's like stuff like that. Where,
and I don't know if you ever saw this, but in July 2016, so the Rams announced they were moving in January of 2016 back to LA. And in July 2016, Isaac Bruce put together this flag football game at the Dome where the Rams play in St. Louis, called Legends of the Dome.
I did hear about that and saw the pictures, but I didn't see video.
So he put it together with his foundation, and he invited anyone who had played for the St. Louis Rams to come back, and I think it was him against, I forget who was the captain of the other team. It was two teams, and so many guys came back. I mean, and I bought tickets. I sat like in the first row to the field, and it was crazy because I remember showing up, and I kid you not, the stadium was almost full. Like, it was crazy. And I remember thinking, I've never seen this many people show up for a flag football game. Like, it was insane. And the first pass of that game was a touchdown pass from Kurt Warner to Isaac Bruce. And I was like, imagine that. It was just awesome. So fun. And I met all the players, and Coach Dick Vermeil was there. And it's just, that whole era is just something that, you move on. And I love LA and the Rams, and their fans are great, but it is fun to look back on kind of a different time. And a lot of those guys actually still live in St. Louis, and I've seen them around occasionally, not often, but.
Yeah, no, I think you go about it the right way, though, because not every St. Louis fan, still follows the Rams or has the same fandom you do. So I feel like in some way you have to be commended for that, because it obviously wasn't easy. I mean, it's not easy losing your team.
Well, no, and I'm the first to admit that when I watched on NFL Network, they came out and said breaking news, the Rams are leaving, and all that I was like, I'm done, and I've said that and and admitted that before, but I truly was like, my dad's side of the family is all Bears fans. And I was like, I'm going to become a Bears fan. I was like, this is ridiculous. And, I watched the first preseason game that they were in LA, and I was like, oh crap. I was like, I have to keep cheering for him,
That was a nutso preseason game. Something about that. It was so special. And, watching like Nelson Spurs catch really the go-ahead touchdown in that, that was like a 90,000, in attendance game. I mean, that was sold out to the max. So, that was something else. I know a lot of people, I think that's the problem, when people get into attendance and stuff, they look at that game and they're like, well, why, are they not selling like they were? Well, you have to keep in mind, one, that's the first time LA went back to, the NFL, for over 20 years or whatever. First off, second, you have to think, 90,000 seats, they're not even able to sell 90,000 seats now because they literally limit it to I think it's 70 something thousand now. So, they came and sell 90 seats and, 90K. And, now they're renovating, cause I was just there in October for the Packers game. They're renovating the press box. So, this huge area of renovating the new press box, and it gets rid of a bunch of seats as well. So, I think the attendance thing is overblown. I think it's become better to just enjoy. I don't get into numbers. I don't get into ratings. The Rams moved to Los Angeles. That was a business decision, and obviously it sucks. But like you said, you're still a Rams fan, and it's a hard moment, but there's still horns on those helmets. There's still players left over from the St. Louis Rams. And, you have one of the better teams in not even football, but sports. The Rams are right now one of the top 5 teams of professional sports, no matter what sport you're talking about. So I think a lot can be said for that.
Yeah, no, totally. And, it is, that's, my team, and I get heat for it. I get heat from people in St. Louis. I get heat from people in LA, but, at the end of the day, it's, I think, you're a fan of a team because they remind you of something, or there's something in that team that, you admire, or you admire the players. And, that's, to me, they're always, part of them is always going to be that St. Louis Rams team to me. When I look at them, I see, I had season tickets when I was 3 and 4 and 5 to that kind of greatest show on turf run. And I'm always going to see that when I look at the Rams. So, that's really an end of the story for me. But that's a whole nother podcast that I could get into, but,
looks like we figured out 5 different episodes. And
yeah, we should have been taking notes, but we'll go back and listen. But this was a good brainstorm for podcast ideas for sure.
Yeah, and guys, this wasn't supposed to be that long. I really appreciate Alexis, because I know she had to get going. This is way past the time that we were going to do it, but I appreciate you hanging in there and making sure we can get this content out to everybody.
Yeah, of course. It's when you and I get talking, we could be here for 4 hours.
Yeah, I think that's been determined.
But yeah, I'm glad that we got to cover everything that we set out to cover.
Absolutely. So that is going to do it for 156 for Jake Ellenbogen. She is Alexis Kraft, and we are going to have a pretty awesome set of podcasts this Sunday and next Monday. We're going to be doing a live mock draft, and we are really super stoked about it. Rounds 1 and 2. Tell your friends. Doesn't matter if they're Rams fans or not. They can listen in live, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And really, it's going to be that on Sunday and Monday. But really, if you don't have any Rams friends, this is the one time you want to showcase the Downtown Rams podcast to them, because this is for all teams, all fans. Unless you're the Bears, because I don't even think they have a draft pick.
Yeah, they don't. It's gonna get intense. I'm excited for it. I think we're all gonna be fighting each other out of love, but fighting.
Yeah,
for our guys.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we got AJ Draft Scout on Twitter. For those of you who don't know, he was nice enough to join us, and not only join us for the first night, but he's going to join us for the second as well. So, going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to be doing some stuff. We have other stuff planned. It's going to be a fun off season. So if you're looking, anywhere for your Rams takes, your Rams content, your news, your analysis, whatever, but you're also looking for draft fix and all that, keep it right here, Downtown Rams, downtownrams.com, and that's going to do it. Thanks so much, guys, and take care.